Video games live and die by the sword of critical and commercial reception. Some new releases do well enough to spawn a sequel, some may well be the beginning of a sprawling franchise, and some do well in practically every regard, and then we never hear from them again. Over the years, PlayStation has hoarded a relative cornucopia of such exclusive IPs, and while it would be impractical for a new iteration of every exclusive to be in development all the time, it's still rather sad to see older but still very solid franchises get pushed to the back as Kratos elbows his way to the front once more with his big, handsome beard and face that's attached to it. With the likelihood being that the PlayStation 5 will be announced this year, we thought it time to look over Sony's vast library and pick out what we think should make a return. Things do get a little tricky when you look back to the PS2 and PS1 era, as most prominent exclusives from the time have since been bought up by other publishers or released on other consoles, so this will predominantly be a PS3 and PS4 list. So let's look at some, shall we? I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 exclusives we want to return on PS5. Number 10. Resistance. Best known for their work on the Ratchet & Clank and Jak and Daxter series, the announcement of Resistance: Fall of Man by developers Insomniac marked their first real foray into darker subject material. A PlayStation 3 launch title, Fall of Man wove the tale of a mysterious disease racing across Europe and turning humans into hive mind-controlled sort of alien things called Chimera. And as it was later revealed, they are just aliens. With England about to fall, the US sends a task force in to find out what all the fuss is about, but by the time the sequel rolled around, the Chimera were invading America, and in the third one, they were hiding underground, so it clearly didn't go that well. There were 5 Resistance titles in total, a trilogy developed by Insomniac for the PS3, with the third one being absolutely outstanding, I must say, and 2 portable offerings for the PSP and Vita respectively. As a lore and story-rich franchise that was well received by both players and critics, it's a shame that the dust cover is very much over Resistance for now, and with all online servers for the trilogy turned off in 2014 with Insomniac head Ted Price claiming they were done with the series, who knows if we'll ever see a Resistance 4 or soft reboot in the future. What we can do, however, is put it on this list, which I have done, so there. Please, Sony. Number 9. Little Big Planet. Wasn't the soundtrack for the first Little Big Planet the absolute best? Launched with the tagline Play, Create, Share in 2008, Media Molecule's PS3 exclusive and massive critical acclaim, receiving a 95% rating on Metacritic and a slew of awards in the process. Starring the adorable Sackboy or Sackgirl, Little Big Planet was a physics-based side-scroller with several planes of depth that the player could jump between. Looking like the entire thing was handmade before it was Cool Yoshi, so just cool your jets over there. And putting an emphasis on user-created content, it wasn't long before players created some truly spectacular things, like a working calculator. Yeah, really. Media Molecule went on to release their follow-up in 2011, deepening the creation tools and essentially allowing players to make their own games. Oh, and did I mention that the whole game had voiceover provided by the legendary Stephen Fry? Fun anecdote. I once tried to interview him about it for a podcast I do, and his agent's response was, "This is not something Stephen would like to do." Ouch. The Little Big Planet franchise is really special, and despite taking something of a step backwards with the Sumo Digital developed Little Big Planet 3, there's still a lot of love for this series. We just need Media Molecule to consider returning. Number 8. Uncharted. A lover of wearing his shirt half untucked, Nathan Drake has been treasure hunting, quipping, and encountering slightly out-of-place supernatural phenomena for over a decade now. From the more light-hearted, Amy Hennig-scripted Original 3 to Neil Druckmann's more grounded and grizzled Uncharted 4, the Uncharted series is absolutely one of the jewels in Sony's crown from one of their best studios in Naughty Dog, and one of the few PS3-founded series that absolutely nailed the leap to PS4. There have been spin-off titles too, including Bend Studios' Vita-exclusive Golden Abyss and 2017's excellent Uncharted Lost Legacy. It's through this most recent entry, however, that we could see the series continue, as it was stated numerous times during Uncharted 4's development that it would conclude Drake's story, and without spoiling anything, it does have an appropriate end that would imply that his arc has concluded. Indeed, Lost Legacy is the only title in the series not to star Drake, instead putting series mainstay Chloe Fraser in the lead role. Whether we continue as Chloe, a new challenger approaches, or Nate makes a surprise return, we have no doubt Sony will want the flagship Uncharted brand on PS5, but only time will tell who gets to be the protagonist. maybe it's me. Number 7. Infamous. Before the likes of Marvel's Spider-Man released last year, there had been a long drought of decent superhero games. "We'll fix that!" exclaimed Sucker Punch. That's how they sound. Exclaimed Sucker Punch Studios, slamming a copy of Infamous down on the table. Launched in 2009 and starring Cole, I've been voiced by 2 different people in 2 different games. McGrath, Infamous gave you electric powers and shoved you into a crime-ridden, not legally New York to try and restore order and uncover the truth behind how you got your powers. If you want. You see, Infamous gave you the choice to make good or evil decisions. They were typically comic book, kill this man or spare him stuff, but the world and story would change depending on your actions. The sequel took Cole, I've been voiced by 2 different people in 2 different games, McGrath, to legally not New Orleans, which is a bit of a nightmare for the poor guy considering his fear and weakness to water. The franchise did make the leap to PS4 with Infamous Second Son, which stars the, dare I say, douchey Delsin Rowe, and the spin-off title First Light would see Second Son side character Fetch take the reins. With fans clamoring for a return to the universe, particularly wishing for an evil Cole McGrath to clash with a good, but still douchey Delsin Rowe, we may be waiting a while. At least if Sucker Punch is to develop that sequel, because their hands are a little full at the moment with the beautiful-looking Ghosts of Tsushima. Number 6. Horizon Zero Dawn. Known for a series with the on-the-nose name KILLZONE, Guerrilla Games surprised everyone a couple of years ago with their very first attempt at open-world RPGs with the outstanding Horizon Zero Dawn. Set in the distant future on Earth, hulking mechanical beasts roamed the land, with humans reverting to an almost nomadic state and living in clans, worshipping the sun, and killing each other just because they live one valley over. Okay, so not much has changed with that last one, but still a very interesting setting for a video game. Post-apocalyptic is a genre done to death in game form, so something truly unique has to be created in order to stand out, and that's absolutely what Guerrilla achieved here. Posing the question, what happened in the past to get us to where we are now, the roller coaster of revelations that you slowly unpick is utterly fascinating and rivals the very best science fiction novels on the matter. Hell, I, for my shame, ignored the majority of side quests, electing to instead sprint hell for leather towards the next story mission just so I could find out the next piece of the puzzle. It's unlikely we won't see a sequel to Horizon on PS5, but whether they can recapture the allure of the mystery at the center of the original remains to be seen. Number 5. Ratchet & Clank. Launching in 2002, the adventures of cuddly Lombax Ratchet and miniature humanoid toaster Clank have seen the pair grace PS2, PS3, PSP, Vita, and most recently, PS4. Full of fun characters, colourful scenery, and huge guns, the series has a massive following, and Sony clearly believed in it so much that they only went and released a movie about the pair in 2016, but it didn't do well. Underwhelming at the box office and crushed by critics, this kind of failure would usually be enough for a company to shelve a franchise entirely, but thankfully, work had begun on a retelling of the original game, with original developers Insomniac returning, and that fared far better. Earning high scores across the board as well as various Game of the Year nods, this was a return to form that players wanted, a love letter to the series, if you will. Whether they continue by retelling Ratchet & Clank 2 or start work on a brand new title, Sony would be mad not to continue the series on PS5. Number 4. Spider-Man. Spider-Man, lucrative partnership with Marvel, Spider-Man. Insomniac again now, rocking in with one of the greatest superhero games ever made. Released last year to rave reviews, players assumed the spandex of an already established Peter Parker and Spider-Man, and I can't thank the developers enough for this choice, because I will not abide seeing my namesake shot by a mugger anymore! It was absolutely gorgeous, with a compelling plot, fluid and intuitive combat, and that traversal across the city. It also sold a copy to every single breathing person in the world, selling 3.3 million units in its first 3 days, making it, at the time, the best-selling game of the year so far. Red Dead. It's also the best-selling Spider-Man game, the best-selling Marvel game, and the fastest-selling superhero game ever. As of November last year, it had sold 9 million copies, and it's an exclusive. So I mean, it's fairly safe to assume that Insomniac have gone straight back onto Spidey duty, right? If there isn't a sequel released on PS5, PlayStation need a good old biff and pow until they make some sense, or a thwip. Thwip is Spider-Man, isn't it? Thwip. Number 3. Motorstorm. I loved Motorstorm, or let me be specific, I loved its sequel, Motorstorm, Pacific Rift. That's Pacific Rift, not specific rift as in, look at that rift, that specific rift over there. I love that one. Launched alongside the PS3 in 2006, Motorstorm was pitched as a big crazy racer with realistic physics, even though there was a boost button, where you could race in everything from big rigs to bikes. The environment, other racers, holding down boost until you just blew up, everything was against you in Motorstorm, creating a truly chaotic and fun arcade racer. The sequel, Pacific Rift, took the game to a tropical island, offering tracks themed around lava, water, jungle, and sharks. I think it's needless to say that outside of Gran Turismo, whose racing sim status makes it unappealing to some, Sony doesn't really have a catch-all mainstream racing series under its belt anymore, especially with the series bowing out with the lower-rated Motorstorm Apocalypse in 2011. Developers Evolution Studios were sadly shut down in 2016 after the failure of their new racing IP, Drive Club, so while it'll be impossible for the original team to return in its entirety, I'm all for a PS5 reinvigoration of a great dumb racer where your car can explode only for you to clamber back in and continue racing anyway. Number 2. God of War. Boy, dad jokes. Ha! Kratos had heard them all and he's so bloody tired. Look at him, all tired with that big tired beard. He seems tired. Taking a huge note out of Naughty Dog's playbook, 2018's God of War was a total 180 from the somewhat mindless hack and slash it once was, instead focusing on a linear and tight narrative, touching moments with your son Atreus and some light open exploration. You can still rip enemies in half though. Yep, the Greek God of War had journeyed far to be free of Zeus's meddling, washing up in the Norse realm of mythology, and it is a revelation. Sony Santa Monica Studio, under the guidance of Cory Barlog, absolutely knocked it out of the park, creating one of the greatest games possibly ever, and perhaps even more impressively, putting together a touching and heartfelt story about Kratos. You know, the man who yells all the time and kills people really violently. It truly is an incredible achievement. And this achievement is only heightened when we come to learn that development on the title was far from smooth, with president of Sony's Worldwide Studios Shuhei Yoshida reportedly horrified after playing an early demo and walking out without saying a word. Shirking the usual DLC route, you've got to imagine the developers are hard at work on a follow-up, especially given the incredible endgame tease, which we won't show. And whilst it looked amazing anyway, just imagine what could be achieved with the power of the PS5. So much more beard. Number 1. Bloodborne. From the twisted minds behind Dark Souls and Demon's Souls, Bloodborne is perhaps one of the greatest exclusive games ever to grace PlayStation hardware. Set in a gothic, Victorian-esque world where the use of ancient beings' blood as medicine and the like hasn't ended so super well, it is the Night of the Hunt, where you, a hunter, are tasked with running around in an utter hellscape, destroying what the blood hath wrought and escaping the nightmare. Probably From Software's greatest game, it avoids many foibles committed by its sister series, changing up the healing mechanics, speed of combat, and replacing the use of a shield, if indeed you actually used one, with a firearm intended to parry a foe when fired at the optimal time. It weaves a dark and twisted tale of man's greed and inability to control oneself when presented with power, quite literally, in the case of Bloodborne, becoming beasts and monsters as a result. In fact, for the first time in their history, you can actually just about follow along with the story of what's happening without needing lore videos and wikis, so cheers to series big boy Hidetaka Miyazaki for achieving that. FromSoft have stated on numerous occasions that they're finished with Dark Souls, but that doesn't mean they're done with Bloodborne. Now, if we were Sony, we'd be throwing all of the money in the world at them to secure a sequel, but if it's going to happen, it'll likely be on PS5, so let's all hold out hope for that. And there we have it, 10 of our favourite PlayStation exclusives. There are loads of hidden gems on PS1 and PS2 that we didn't include here, so why not let us know what you want to return in the comments. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and while you're at it, why not support the things you enjoy by having a look at our Patreon. Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.